2023 was my best reading year by far. I completed 70 books, audio and physical books. I have already done a video telling you the books that I did not finish because they were so bad, or in a couple of cases just wasn't in the mindset to be able to read them, that I couldn't even finish them. But these books are the books that I did finish that I really did not like. So these are going to be my worst books of 2023, and I have 11 books to share with you. Some of these are pretty popular books. One of them that I liked the least is probably going to acquire some hate on my part, but we'll talk about that when we get to the end. So stay tuned to my possibly hot take on one of my least favorite books. The first one that I finished that I did not like and I gave 2 stars was We Lie Here by Rachel Housel Howell. And I have my notes in front of me, so if you see me looking down, it's so I can give you a good synopsis of it and remember my thoughts on it. So this book talks about Yara Gibson, and she is back in town of her hometown of Palmdale, California, to host an anniversary party for her parents. Her relationship with her mother is very strained and contentious, to say the least. She does not get along with her mom, and in fact, most people don't get along with her mom. Her mom is very manipulative and very controlling over everyone, her husband, her kids, her other family members. And so Yara is there to host this anniversary party. You know, she's got this family dynamics that are really, really intense. And all of a sudden she starts getting messages, these urgent messages from a woman named Felicia. And Felicia is a childhood friend of her mom's. And she keeps getting these messages saying, like, we've got to talk, it's urgent, before it's too late, I've got to meet with you, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, Yara is distressed out because she's planning this anniversary party, and she's got health issues, which kind of thanks to her mom. If you read the book, you'll understand why. And so she never meets with Felicia, and then before you know it, Felicia ends up dead, of course. And so the race is on to discover who killed Felicia, why was she sending all of these urgent messages to Yara, and what is this key that they found on her body? What is that for? So my thoughts on this book were that I had all of that sounds very cool and right up my alley, but I had a really hard time getting into this book. I would get into it for about 10 pages and then it would be really slow. So I was able to kind of muddle through the first 100 pages of this book, but it just continued to have this excitement flat, excitement drop. And so I just finally started to skim through to the end, you know, skimming, you know how to skim. And so I finally got to the end, and the end was crazy, and it seemed a little far-fetched, but that may be because I didn't read the whole thing, every word of it. But I finished it, and it was not a really great book. The next 2-star book that I finished was The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Again, the synopsis of this book is everything that I love in a mystery. It's an adaptation of Agatha Christie's The Hunting Party. I've never read that book, but I love Agatha Christie. A wedding is being held in Ireland, and the groom is a handsome TV star, and the bride is this well-known, successful magazine publisher. So, you know, everything is picture perfect at their wedding. All of the guests are perfect, and the bridal party's perfect, and everything is perfect, and everyone's gorgeous. But once all of these characters get together, you know, jealousies are starting and brewing to the surface, and old wounds come to the surface again, and there's all this drama that starts to happen. And, of course, someone ends up dead. So you have to figure out who did it. My thoughts on this book were that I really did like the switch between the characters in the book. That really kind of helps to kind of make the book fast, because this was a fast read for me. However, I I figured out the plot and the whodunit halfway through the book. So really, halfway through the book, it was just me sort of like confirming, yes, that this is the person that did it, and you know, all that good stuff. Okay, this is probably by far one of the worst books that I listened to. This was an audiobook. I gave it 2 stars, but I don't know. It probably could have been like 1.5 stars. It's called Every City is Every Other City by John McFetridge. And honestly, this would have been a did not finish if it had been a physical book. The fact that I was listening to it on audio really helped me to like make myself listen to it during my downtime in the car or walking the dog and all of that good stuff. It was okay, but about 3/4 of the way through the book, the cussing started to get outrageous, and F-bombs were all over the place, and that just, again, sort of like I talked about in my last book video, sex and too many cuss words are just not necessary. Like overt, intense descriptions of sex and too many cuss words are just superfluous, and I don't think that it's necessary. I'm okay with, you know, a hint of sex and let me paint my own pictures, and I'm okay with some cuss words. It's not ideal. I don't cuss in my real life, but that's beside the point. But too many is too much, and I just feel like that's just not really like literally important, I guess, if that makes sense. Okay, also in this book, Every City is Every Other City, there were 2 separate plots going on and 2 separate like situations going on, and I found it very confusing, and I just don't feel like the 2 things connected. So I passed that one. The next 2-star read was The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osmond. I listened to almost an hour of this audiobook and I had no idea what was going on, and I really honestly think this probably should have been a did not finish, because based off that review and the fact that I couldn't even remember that I read that, I think I didn't finish it after an hour. So that may have been a did not finish. My next 2-star book, I think by no fault of the book or the author, but really just my personal preferences in reading, was Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is a fantasy book, and I have never read a fantasy book before, and 2023 was my year to branch out into different genres. I read historical fiction for the first time, loved it. I read several horror books, and I don't love it, but I think they're funny, so I don't mind them given the right one. Anyway, this was a fantasy book, and I had never read fantasy, and, you know, I just decided I don't like fantasy, and that's okay. I don't have to like fantasy. I think that if you like fantasy books, you would probably like this book. And a funny story, out of all the books that I read, and I get my books from the library most of the time, or from audiobooks. So this was a book I got from the library. Well, at 4 o'clock in the morning, didn't realize that my new little puppy was eating the book. So I had to, on this book that I didn't even really like, I had to go buy another book to replace the one from the library's copy. So now I now own my dog-eaten version of this book that I didn't even really like. So, you know, maybe somebody will like it. In my life, somebody likes fantasy, and I'll give it to them. And they won't mind that it's been eaten by my puppy. Anyway, the whole premise of this book is Emily Wilde and her nemesis, Wendell Bamblebee, I believe, go on a fairy hunt, and they're trying to find these unique species of fairies, and they're documenting their journey together. And there's, you know, love brewing, I think, between the 2 of them, and so that also adds another element to the story. The next 2-star read was My Name is Lucy Barton by Elizabeth Stroud, and this is all about Lucy's journey of discovering herself and healing old wounds. Again, it was so unmemorable that I really honestly don't even remember listening to that one. It was an audiobook. The next one was Curious Minds by Janet Ivanovich and Fife Sutton. Janet Ivanovich does the Stephanie Plum series, which I like those. They're entertaining, and I'm going to talk more about those in my best of 2023 books, so stay tuned for that. But this one doesn't have the humor that the Stephanie Plum books had. I found it just really dry, kind of along the lines of Every City is Every Other City. That book and this book are both really bland, and like the narrators didn't add a lot of life to the characters. So I think that that's part of it as well for me. The next 2-star read was She's Gone by David Bell. This is a book that I had gotten from one of my students for teacher appreciation, which I thought was a really cool and thoughtful gift because they asked what I liked, and I told them I like to read, and this is what I like to read. So I was very thankful for that, but I ended up not really liking this book. It was a very fast read, especially since I skimmed through it because it was just too much fluff, and the plot was very predictable, and you really didn't need to read every word of this book to understand what was going on. The ending was very surprising, but it took a long journey to get there. We had to weed through a lot of unnecessary stuff to get there. It could have been a lot shorter of a book. And it's about Hunter and his girlfriend goes missing. Hunter's girlfriend goes missing. And he's in high school, and he has to prove that he had nothing to do with it. And, the town, everybody hates him, and they don't know where the girl is, and she's missing, and they know something bad happened to her because they find blood, I think, in his car. So it's just a whole thing. A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher was the another 2-star book that I finished. This is a horror genre book where a woman returns home to help. She's kind of in limbo between jobs, and she kind of travels for her job, so she's in limbo. She goes to stay with her mom and her grandmother's old house, and there's a lot of really creepy, spooky things happening. And the thing that I didn't like about this one, I like Grady Hendrix. His horror books are really good. I like his, but this one was very boring, and it wasn't enough action in this book to keep me laughing and to keep me entertained. The main character in this book is like an entomologist, so she studies bugs and the history of how bugs can tell us about the past, kind of a thing. And so she knows a lot about bugs, and so of course bugs have to do with the horror aspect of this book, and it just is too detailed about bugs. It talks about bugs all the time. So I was skipping through all the bug talk to try to find the meat and the excitement of the book, and I just couldn't find it. Now I'm going to talk about my last two, and I would say that this one that I'm going to tell you about is a really big letdown for me in two ways, and it's the Pink Lemonade Cake Murder by Joanne Fluke. This is the Hannah Swinson series, where Hannah Swinson's a baker, but she's also like a mystery buff, and she solves all these murders in her little small town. If it was a real town, don't go there. And so she's solving the murder of this famous Major League Baseball player in her town. And I like this book because it gives, I like these books because it also gives recipes, and it's very cozy mystery vibes in this series of books. But one thing that really tanked it for me is the narrator's voice on this one. It was really bothersome to me, and I just want to kind of leave it at that. It was very bothersome. I really did not like her narration of it. But also I feel like at this point, this love triangle with Hannah and her two suitors is really kind of running its course, and I'm getting bored with this. And also at the same time, I'm starting to feel bad for these guys. She needs to pick a guy. We're done. In the Stephanie Plum novel, Stephanie Plum has picked her guy. We're not on book 30, and she's still trying to decide which man she wants, like Hannah Swinson. Hannah Swinson needs to pick a guy and let the other one go, because she's stringing them along, and it's starting to get a little sad and frustrating for me. It's time to talk about the book that I liked probably the least. And I'm sorry. I know a lot of people, this is a biography, an autobiography, and I know a lot of people really like this person, and I'm not saying that my feelings about this book are indicative of the person and all the things this person went through, because no one can dispute the fact that Britney Spears has been through it. She has fought a long, hard fight to get to where she's at. However, I really did not like her book. I am actually so saddened that it won Best Autobiography or Memoir from Goodreads, because it's not a well-written book. If I'm thinking about just this book, not her story, not her life, but the book and the way the book was written is not a well-written book. It is, and I totally agree. I've seen other reviews that said this same things that I'm saying, so I'm not the only one. But I feel like this is her diary. Somebody went and took her diary, and now it's this book. It's informal in its language and its use of words. And so, yeah, I was really not impressed with the book and the writing of the book. But, you know, of course, her life has been very hard, and she's had to go through a lot of things, and she's had a lot of people that should have been there for her that were not there for her. So I'm not saying that I don't like her. I'm just saying that the book is not a well written book. So I'm gonna just leave it at that. Now, my next video that you will see will be about my favorite books of 2023, and I have some really good ones that I've discovered new genres, like I said earlier, and really just branched out a lot this year, and I read and listened to so many good things, and I'm excited to share those with you. So be sure that you're subscribed, and let me know in the comments below what your least favorite book was of 2023. I'll see you later. Bye.